Welcome back, folks. Twisted Nightmare Gaming. This is Nightmare here, and I'm gonna give you one more list here. This list will probably consist of a lot of people. If you're under the age of, I'm gonna probably say 20, you probably don't know half these people, or if you did, you probably looked them up while I was saying this list. Unless they've wrestled somewhere near you or still currently wrestling. This is going to be my top 10 No, screw it. No. This is going to be my top 15 factions between the NWA / WCW and the WWE. Make my life a little bit easier, because I don't really want to do a top 10 list for factions in the WWE, because half of them factions was in WCW at one time. So here we go. Number 10, The New Day. I liked them better when they were heels. It's kind of why they're so low on this list. I've made no qualms. I have no qualms with what I'm saying when I say I liked them better when they were heels and everybody hated their guts. And then again, as most people know who know me personally, I'm more of a fan of heels than I am baby faces. So, them being overly marketed baby faces, And going back to my top 10 list for my previous list, which was my top 10 WWE tag teams, simply put, the reason why I didn't put the Usos or the Bar on that list is, again, my top 10 list kind of fluctuates yearly, and they were both in my top 10 last year. They literally just got bumped out this year. Probably in the last few months, and that's kind of at the fault of the WWE. Same thing with the Revival. I mean, but I digress. Moving on, I said 15, so that was number 15, so we're down to 4. We're at 14. I don't know if I said 10, 15. Again, I'm doing this just as I got off work. I'm kind of tired, as you can tell. So that was 15, and I say we're doing a top 15. We'll do 14 now. 14. And I'm probably going to catch hell for them being this low on this list. Every single incarnation of D-Generation X. Do I really need to explain why? Do you remember why they were formed? And if you know the reason why they formed, then you know why the faction that was formed before them in WCW is going to be a lot higher on this list than them. It's just I got sick of seeing primarily Triple H and Shawn Michaels running around at 49 and 54 acting like they were when they were in their 20s and 30s. Yeah, I don't really like that too much. Kind of like why the Brothers of Destruction were so low on my favorite tag list. 13. The Radicals. Benoit, Guerrero, Saturn, Malenko. Four of my favorite wrestlers, no matter what company they were in, and one faction together coming in from WCW. Can't say much about that. It's one of my favorite factions. period. 12. The NWO Wolfpack. And the reason why I like the NWO Wolfpack, until Kevin Nash screwed Goldberg. Till Nash screwed Goldberg. The reason why I liked the NWO Wolfpack was simply because at that time Sting was my favorite wrestler and he joined the Wolfpack. And then you also had Conan in the Wolfpack at one time. And you had Ray by default in the Wolfpack. So, 11. Guess I'll put the Shield in 11. I'm not putting them in the top 10. I didn't like them enough to put them in the top 10. Did I like them when they first came out? Absolutely. But I will never put them in my top 10. Number 10. The Nexus. Any incarnation of the Nexus. Whether it was Wade Barrett running the Nexus or the Core. Either one. Because they all had the same damn people in them. So it could be either CM Punk's rendition of it, or it could be the original with Wade Barrett, or it could be the Core. Either one. This is where people are gonna get mad. Because they're gonna get mad because the Spirit Squadron's inside of my top 10 and the Shield's not. 5 male cheerleaders where Mike Mondo is one of my favorite wrestlers in Ring of Honor history. Because of his entire, simply because of his in-ring work and his mic skills from one of his promos that he cut when he first broke his leg when he was wrestling for Ring of Honor, and he threw down the crutches and called them bitch sticks. Say no more. Sign me up. I didn't really care. Let me put it like this. As a faction, they did their part. You cannot deny that they didn't do their part. 8. The Corporation. A faction built on screwing with baby faces, namely Stone Cold Steve Austin. Ran by Vince McMahon and in some points Shane. I'm not going to say corporate ministry because the higher power storyline kind of killed that for a lot of people, myself included, after a while. But I will say that number 7 is the Ministry of Darkness, simply because it was a faction led by the Undertaker. And Undertaker, when he was in that demonic cult leader time frame, I absolutely loved his work. But then you had Midian, you had Viscera, the Brood at one time was in that faction. That's kind of the reason why I'm not going to put the Brood in this list as a faction separate, even though they technically were. Either variation of the Brood, which was Edge Christian and Gangrel, or Edge Christian and the Hardys and Gangrel. I'm not gonna put them in a separate faction. Separate the factions because the Brood was at one time part of the Ministry. I couldn't put APA, even though I did like them. I thought about putting them in my top 10 tag teams list, but I like them better as the Acolytes, personally. They didn't talk. They just came out, whooped people's asses, and then left. What is that? 7? So number 6. The original Hogan, Hall, and Nash in WCW, NWO. There hasn't been too many factions that were more influential in the 90s than the NWO. Hell, if you think about it, the NWO influenced the Bullet Club to an extent. Need I really say more? Hogan turning heel for the first time in his entire career. We wouldn't have gotten that if it wasn't for the NWO. The only reason why they don't make my top 5 is because number 5 is Evolution. Yes, I could put Evolution a lot higher on this list. I should put Evolution higher on this list. But I don't want to put Evolution higher on this list. No, I'm not putting the Four Horsemen at number 4, even though that would be so apropos. I don't want to. Number 4. And I think I've toiled with this one for a while. The two-man power trip when they joined forces with Vince McMahon. A heel Austin. Austin, after all this time, turning heel and shaking hands with the devil himself, Vince McMahon. Vince pretty much gift wrapping the title to Austin. And then Triple H joining in. We're a 3-man faction. I mean, really can't say more. Alright. There's number 4. Number 3. Number 3 is probably going to piss people off simply because many people didn't like this faction in WCW, and I absolutely loved them. The Filthy Animals. It's one of my favorite factions ever. Whether they were heel or babyface. I've said it already. Conan, Rey Mysterio, and Billy Kidman made that faction. That was the main reason why I loved that faction so much. I didn't care if they were faces or heels. Number 2. And a complete clone of the New World Order. And I know this one's going to make people mad too. The Latino World Order. Simply because everybody, there wasn't a single person in that faction I didn't like. I absolutely loved Ray because he was still trying to stay true to being a babyface in a completely heel faction ran by Eddie Guerrero. And I loved Eddie tormenting him the entire time. Alright, so we've gone through 14. And I have not said the Four Horsemen yet. So that kind of made this anticlimactic that if they weren't going to be number 4, I didn't say them at number 3, and I didn't say them at number 2, then that means number 1 can only be the Four Horsemen. I don't really need to explain why. How many incarnations of the Four Horsemen between NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW? I mean, Triple H even said it himself. Evolution was simply that, an evolution of the Four Horsemen. Need I really say more? Again, though, my list is subjective to myself, my list really does fluctuate from time to time. My top 5 has fluctuated probably 8-9 times in the last 2.5 years. So there you have it, my top 15 WWE/WCW factions. Well, NWA/WCW and WWE factions. Leave a comment if you whether you disagree or agree with me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell 3 times. This is Nightmare with Twisted Nightmare Gaming, signing off.